Cyberpunk 2077 has a lot of guns. The game's collection of firearms runs the gamut from some of the most wacky, insane sci-fi nonsense weapons to the most gun-ass guns ever created. At one moment you're using a pistol that looks like something you can find today, and the next moment you're using a shotgun that fires a cloud of homing missile bees. I'm going to go through Cyberpunk's arsenal in no particular order, and take a look at what the people of Night City are using to flatline each other, examining the animations, the detail of the models, and trying to understand the mechanisms of each gun. I'll put a few rounds down my private range, and also see how each weapon performs against the colorful cast of gonks you can find in the streets of Night City. I'll give an arbitrary rating based on how good or garbage they are. Now, a lot of the iconic weapons in this game share the same model as standard weapons, just having a slightly modified appearance, so I won't be covering those, only iconics that have unique models. With that out of the way, let's do this. The Unity is a good first gun to start with. It's probably the most normal gun in the entire game. It wouldn't look out of place in a modern day setting. To me, it looks like a 1911 with a bit of a Glock-like boxy appearance, as if the two guns had a baby. A Glock 45, if you will. Taking a closer look at the model, you'll notice a high level of detail. Most of the guns in the game have manufacturer logos, serial numbers, and caliber markings, etc. The Unity looks like it has all of the right controls. Safety, mag release, slide stop are all there. I also like the extra large trigger guard, allowing you to use the gun while wearing gloves or having big cyber fingers. Looking down the barrel is a bit of a disappointment. For all the detail on the gun, the barrel is not rifled and just stops. Shame, really. When V first equips the Unity, she does a press check because it's the thing you do with pistols in the movies. I did notice that V prefers to rack the slide on empty rather than use the slide release. Not much to say otherwise about the firing and reloads. It's a gun that shoots bullets. It's got simple, clean sights. The hammer is animated, which is nice. The reload makes sense. Even the sound is nice and chunky. The Unity is a nice little example of very sane gun design in the Cyberpunk universe. It might be the most pistol-ass pistol ever designed. A testament to the idea, if it isn't broken, don't fix it. It's also the designated cutscene gun for most of the scenes where V is using a gun, and I can see why. It's a clean and simple design. 9 out of 10. Now this is a sci-fi pistol. The Yukimura is a smart pistol firing self-guided rounds. The bottom half of the gun looks pretty pistol-like. All the markings are there, the controls are present and ambidextrous, with a safety forward of the trigger. I think it even has an integrated laser sight. The top half is where things get strange. The magazine loads in from the back of the gun and is horizontal. Reminds me of a P90 mag, kind of. On the top of the gun is what looks to be the targeting computer. The front has a little scanner, and this is what I would guess locks on and gives the homing rounds their target. Because of this, there are no standard sights. The barrel is not rifled, but since this is firing micro rockets, it probably doesn't need it. The Yukimura is fully automatic with a fairly slow rate of fire. When you use the aim down sights button, V tilts the gun to the side and it fires in 3-round bursts. There doesn't seem to be any toggle for this firing mode other than the tilt, which is strange. The reloading looks fine, with the full reload having V hit a slide release to chamber a round. A question I'll have for all of the smart guns is that if the ballistic computer breaks, can you still use the gun effectively? With conventional weapons, a broken sight is not the end of the world, but with a smart gun you lose a lot of the power of the weapon. The Yukimura is fine, I suppose, as long as your gun doesn't run out of batteries. 6 out of 10. As flashy and loud as its owner, the 3516 is Johnny Silverhand's custom iron. At a glance, the gun has an unorthodox and striking design, with a bright red skeletonized grip and the magazine forward of the trigger. All of the markings look good and the controls are all there. Doing a quick barrel check and no rifling, boo. Despite that, this is probably one of the best looking guns in the game. When drawing the 3516 for the first time, V does a press check and spins the gun around because it's the thing you do with pistols in the movies. V is pretty flashy using this gun, doing all sorts of spins and flicks when reloading. I know that Johnny is in V's head, but I like to think that this is V just being silly and copying Silverhand's style. The Malorian's mechanism is a bizarre looking thing. When the slide is pulled back, a lifter picks up a cartridge and pushes it into the slide, with the barrel reciprocating back a bit. The slide slams forward into battery and pushes the barrel back into position. The slide is some sort of rotating assembly, spinning on reload and after each shot. The slide flies back nearly its entire length on firing, so V better keep their hand low. The visible flash at the rear of the barrel on firing is a tad concerning. This thing fires 5.77 Nitro Express rounds, a large game hunting round, which is an interesting choice. I like the idea of Johnny telling a gunsmith to make him a pistol firing the biggest, stupidest round he could think of. Gun nuts, please chime in and tell me if this whole mechanism could work, or is it just fake gun magic? Probably the most insane feature of this gun is the quick attack. V smacks the back of the gun and it spits out a short-range blast of fire that empties the magazine. I want to say that this is almost certainly a piece of fiction, but I'm sure someone in the comments will tell me that this is inspired by a prototype gun made by the Soviets in 1981 as part of a project to miniaturize flamethrowers. Overall, the 3516 is probably the most iconic gun from the game, and for good reason. Despite having to dock it a point for its bizarre internal mechanism and flamethrower attack, it's still a damn good looking gun. The rule of cool wins out on this one. 8 out of 10. A tiny tubular gun, the Chao is a quad-barreled smart pistol. I can't see a safety, but maybe smart guns don't need those. No sights either, so pray that the targeting computer doesn't fail. The gun only fires in 3-round bursts. On reload, the entire barrel/magazine assembly slides off the front of the gun and is replaced with a fresh one. I wonder if those are reusable or single use, and how heavy they are. Would it be a pain to carry a bunch around instead of some standard mags? The targeting computer rotates out of the way when reloading, and I hope that mechanism is reliable, or that it still works properly when on the side. Same with the mechanism that spits out the mag tube. No spit, no shoot. I don't really care for this gun. It's not terrible, but the moving bits and lack of backup sights don't fill me with confidence. 5 out of 10. There's a saying, any gun is better than no gun. The Budget Arms Slaught-O-Matic might be the exception. Available only from vending machines across Night City for the low price of €100, this is a gun for the truly desperate. The frame is made of cheap plastic and comes in a variety of bright, gaudy colors. It's covered in warning markings, including a big "Do Not Reload" stamped on the grip. True to the warning, the gun comes preloaded with a single 36-round mag of what looks to be like 9mm. And once it's spent, V simply tosses the gun away. It appears to be an open bolt blowback design, a simple firing mechanism that makes sense for a super cheap weapon. It doesn't have a safety either, presumably because that would cost too much. Peering down the barrel, it's unrifled, though that almost fits for a gun you buy out of a vending machine. The barrel itself is fully rendered and you can make out the bolt and firing pin through it. The Slaught-O-Matic fires at a slow, chunky rate of fire, with a surprising amount of recoil, and it doesn't seem very accurate, spraying bullets vaguely in the direction V is aiming. If you ever find yourself relying on this gun, things have gone very, very wrong. Mechanically, there isn't much wrong or weird about it, but between the no reload gimmick, the poor accuracy, and the cheap construction, this isn't a gun I'd want to trust my life to. 3 out of 10. The Grit is a gun made and used by the Barguest in Dogtown. While most of the gun looks original, the frame is recycled from the Slaught-O-Matic, modified to be reloaded. I do find it funny that they didn't cover up the "Do Not Reload" sticker on the side. The Grit looks like it's some kind of coil gun. The coil's hidden behind a reciprocating barrel shroud. I can't see a safety, but who needs one of those? The barrel is unrifled too. Okay, from now on, I'll only comment on the barrel if there is something right or interesting with it. When firing, the rear of the gun slides back and forth. It looks like the bolt slams back and kicks out the rear. Strange design, and I can't really see why it works like that. There are no casings ejected from the gun, which lends more evidence to this being a coil gun, in addition to all the electric sounds and arcs coming off of the gun. Charging the gun while aiming allows it to fire in full auto at a similar rate of fire to the Slaught-O-Matic. My big question with the grit is, why did they even use the frame from the Slaught-O-Matic? So much of the gun is different parts, it seems odd that they would not just make a frame of their own. They already have the ability to make the hard parts of the gun, but not some injection molded plastic or resin. Seems like the Barghest really wanted to make a gun out of the Slaught-O-Matic for the funsies. 4 out of 10. Another Arasaka pistol, the Kenshin, has a very similar lower half to the Yukimura. The controls are all there, and overall the gun looks pretty conventional, like it's a slightly futuristic version of a modern semi-auto pistol. There is no ejector port on the slide, so this must be a coil gun, railgun, or firing caseless rounds. Although I will point out that caseless weapons, and probably railguns, still do need an ejector port to clear malfunctions. The trigger guard is a little small, so chooms with big robo fingers beware. When first drawing the Kenshin, V checks the mag and racks the slide because it's the thing you do with pistols in the movies. The rounds in the magazine are triangular. Being some kind of electromagnetic weapon, I'm going to guess that they are pointed fléchette projectiles, and the triangle bit is a sabot to hold them in the proper position in the barrel, discarding as the round leaves the muzzle. The reloads look clean, mag out, new one in, rack slide. The gun fires in 2-round bursts and can be charged because, why not? The Kenshin is a pretty clean gun. While the Unity could be a modern pistol, I could imagine the Kenshin being a real gun in the future of our reality. It's neat. 7 out of 10. The Lexington is up there for one of the most normal looking guns in the game. A little flashier than the Unity, sure, but still pretty normal. All the controls are present, mag release, trigger safety, etc. It also has a selection switch, as this is a full auto pistol. No option to switch to semi in the game though, which kinda sucks. The front is an all metal piece that probably acts as a weight to help keep the muzzle down and recoil controllable during automatic fire. The tang of the gun goes back pretty far too. A lot of the mechanism of the gun being in those last 2 inches. Looking down the barrel, it's not rifled, but this is one of the few barrels you can look down and see the firing pin. When first drawing the Lexington, V racks the slide because it's the thing you do with pistols in the movies. The fire rate is decent, not too fast, but even still, the recoil and spread on this thing is pretty wild. To be fair, that's kind of to be expected on a machine pistol. You're not going to be using this thing for precision shots, this is a spray and pray type gun. Reload looks clean, mag out, new one in, slide release, boom, good to go. The slide does reciprocate back, and with how far back it goes to begin with, it nearly doubles the length of the gun when locked open. Interesting quirk. The Lexington feels like they made a reasonable semi-auto, and some engineer fresh off their 10th coffee that day decided to make it full auto because, why not? Good for him. 7 out of 10. The Liberty is the Unity, but long. Like someone took the Unity and stretched out the barrel to almost comical proportions, making the gun twice as long. Look how big this thing is! Look at it! This is probably highly ranked as one of the worst choices for concealed carry. There is a brass weight compensator or something at the muzzle, but otherwise the gun is almost identical to the Unity. Same markings, firing the same caliber, same controls. The firing and reload is nearly the same to the Unity, and thus leads me to ask, why? Why does this pistol exist? It's massive. Imagine how much heavier it would be compared to its smaller brother. Also, good luck pulling this fucking enormous hog of a pistol out of a holster. Might as well strap it to your hip and draw it like a sword. I guess if you do run out of ammo, you could simply start swinging it like a club at whatever gonks you're fighting. While I like the Unity, the Liberty is the Unity but stupidly bigger. The Unity but heavier. The Unity but much, much more sillier. 6 out of 10. The Niue is a fairly big and beefy looking pistol. Visually, there isn't much wrong or out of place with it. It has all the markings and controls. The trigger does look a little wonky. It's a curved trigger face on a stick. I'm no expert, but it doesn't look very good. Also, there's what appears to be a screw forward of the trigger in the trigger guard. Not sure what that's supposed to be. Gun nuts, please explain. When first drawing the Niue, V does a press check because it's the thing you do with pistols in the movies. The gun has a nice and chunky firing sound, and the reload looks good. Not much to comment on there. What I did notice, however, is quirks with the loaded chamber indicator. The Niue has a chamber indicator on the top of the slide. It says loaded when up on it, and even has a little light on the side. The issue is that this is always up, no matter what. Firing, reloading, even on empty, the chamber indicator is always on. It's a shame that they added such a nice little detail and didn't give it a simple pop up and down animation to really nail it. Another question for the gun nuts out there. The Niue has a chamber indicator light on the rear of the gun near the hammer. The lights on the sights and on the slide indicator all share the same blue color. When reloading, the color changes to red to indicate that the gun is not ready to fire. From my understanding, this is usually the reverse, right? Red is used to indicate that a gun is ready to fire. It's hot, it's dangerous, it's a bright, easy to see color, with another color used to show that the gun is safe or unloaded, like white or green. Minor thing, but the devil is in the details. The Niue is fine. It's got some weird quirks like the trigger looking like garbage and the chamber indicator not working properly. Okay, maybe the Niue is not so fine. 5 out of 10. Another electromagnetic pistol, the Omaha is a normal-ish looking gun. The slide release looks like it's a slide forward switch on a rail. Not sure what's up with that. I can't see a mag release on the gun. The closest thing I can see is a button on the back of the grip. That might be a heel release. No safety I can see either. No switch or toggle or trigger safety. Very strange. Maybe more will become clear with some shooting. The Omaha has a lot of moving parts. Both the blue-gray inner slide and the outer silver slide reciprocate, and my question is why? I can guess that even in an electromagnetic weapon, the inner slide is cycling the action using the force of the round fired and chambering another round. But what does the silver bit do? Cause more friction? Add more spots for dirt to gum up the gun? Another pointless moving part to get more cash out of you when it breaks. Also on reload, the magazine just falls out of the gun. V never touches the heel release or any other part. The magazine can just sense when the shooter wants to reload and just lets gravity take it. This gun is one of the first ones I've looked at that has needless moving parts and has the magical mag release. Add more pointless bits and bobs and it could almost be a Starfield gun. 3 out of 10. The in-game description states that the Ticon is an older version of the Omaha. Let's see if it does better than its replacement. It definitely looks futuristic-ish. The angled front kind of reminds me of a Vector, just smaller and stockless. The magazine is in the grip, which makes me wonder what exactly the angled part is. There's a battery logo and a small display on the bottom, so maybe it's a power cell. There are a lot of controls on the gun, but it's not clear what some of them are. One of these has to be a mag release, another a slide release, and one a safety, but good luck guessing which is which, as none are labeled. The barrel is, for lack of a better description, all weird and railgun looking, which is neat. When first drawing the Ticon, V does a press check because it's the thing you do with pistols in the movies. The Ticon fires in 3-round bursts, and when aiming, the charge shot will fire 3 shots at once in a triangular pattern. When reloading, you can see that each round has 3 little flechettes embedded in them. My guess is that normal firing fires 3 of these rounds in burst, while the charge shot fires a single round, breaking up to 3 flechettes. Although the burst still takes 3 rounds from the magazine, so maybe not. But that might be a gameplay balance concession. If anyone thinks they know what is going on with this gun, please tell me. Like the Omaha, the Ticon has 2 slides because of course it does. I cannot imagine why it needs them. but this seems to run in the gun's family. Also, like the Omaha, no mag release is touched on reload. It either just falls out or V yanks it out. The Ticon is a cool design, let down by a lot of skimping on details and bizarre moving parts and mechanisms. 4 out of 10. The first revolver I'm looking at is the most standard looking one in the game. It has a cylinder, trigger, hammer, cylinder release, all the bits are there. The barrel is big and chunky, probably to weigh it down and help with recoil. There's also a laser sight integrated below the muzzle. Looking down the barrel, you can see the cartridge in the chamber. No rifling though. The trigger guard is only half of a full guard. Is there a reason for this, or just style? When first drawing the Overture, V flips the cylinder out and in because it's the thing you do with revolvers in the movies. The hammer barely moves at all when firing, sometimes appearing to not move at all. Also kinda hard to see, but there does appear to be cylinder gap exhaust when fired. On reload, there is another missed detail. Even when all the rounds are fired, the rounds that are ejected from the gun are all unfired, still having bullets in them. That's really sloppy. Even Fallout 4's revolvers showed spent cases when reloading. The reload animations themselves are fine. V uses a speed loader to quickly load the gun, adding some flashy spins of the cylinder because it's cool. V likes to swing the cylinder closed. I've heard that doing this is bad for the gun, but I've also heard that it's not a big deal. Gun nuts, please inform me and start a comment war about this below the video, thank you. The Overture looks fine, but why did the devs let down a cool looking revolver by skimping on the details? The first couple weapons were pretty good at accounting for them, but they started to backslide. Let's hope it doesn't get worse. 6 out of 10. Why yes, this massive brick of steel in the vague shape of a revolver is a Soviet gun. How could you tell? This power drill looking piece of shit is an electromagnetic revolver that you can use as a club when out of ammo. Can't see much in the way of controls, other than the shitty looking trigger. Cylinder release, safety, who needs them? I really like how the rear sight/ammo counter is welded onto the gun. Like they were about to be finished with this one in the factory and some worker went, Bliet, Sergey, we forgot to mount sight on gun. Quickly weld it on before shift ends. The Burya only has 4 shots, and on reload the entire cylinder is replaced. I've always been iffy on this style of revolver reload. Let's say that because this is an electromagnetic weapon, the cylinders don't have to stand as high pressures as a conventional gun. I don't know if that's the case for reality, but let's pretend it is. It would still be a pain in the ass to carry all these extra cylinders with you to reload. Just their shape and size would make them so much more annoying to carry than a conventional box mag. The reload has the entire top of the gun rising up, and V very crudely either smashing or forcing the old cylinder out with a fresh one. Normally I wonder if this could damage the gun, but considering this one is made entirely out of steel, it should be fine. No release is hit when reloading either. The gun can just divine when the shooter wants to reload apparently. Big Soviet revolver is missing a few parts and is ugly as sin. 4 out of 10. The Nova has an interesting profile. The barrel and cylinder are low in the frame. The midline barrel keeps the recoil more in line with the shooter's hand, helping to reduce its impact. The low cylinder also keeps the center of mass lower, reducing muzzle rise. The gun is hammerless, so is this a striker-fired revolver? Do those exist in real life? There is a trigger safety and cylinder release. Not sure what these other 2 bits do though. Decocker? Mystery fun buttons? Dunno. When first drawing the Nova, V rotates the cylinder because it's the thing you do with revolvers in the movies. Like the Burya, the Nova reloads by replacing the cylinder, so it has the same issue of having to lug a backpack of extra cylinders around with you. Are these cylinders reusable? I ask because if yes, they would have to be made out of fairly sturdy material to contain the pressure of a cartridge firing. Pressure-bearing parts are usually made out of steel, which would make them pretty heavy in addition to their bulk. Maybe they're single-use and made out of plastic durable enough to take 6 shots and then it's garbage. It's also a good way of milking customers for more cash. Single-use cylinders, geez. Also like the Burya, V shows very little love when reloading, flipping or smashing out the cylinders. You can see the cartridges when looking down the barrel, and unlike the Overture, the rounds on ejected cylinders are actually spent. So good job, devs. Less ugly than the Burya, and more detailed than the Overture. Still, I don't like the cylinder swapping. 6 out of 10. Now I know what you might be thinking. Nez, this clearly isn't a revolver. Why are you mentioning this with the other revolvers? Well, that's because it is a revolver and the game considers it one. The Metel is a semi-auto, magazine-fed, toggle-locked revolver. It's like the designer wanted the gun to be every kind of pistol at the same time. This thing is nonsense. Who cares about the details? I just need to show you how this thing shoots. So V loads a mag into the grip like a semi-auto. Then there is a cylinder which looks like it only has 2 chambers, one top, one bottom. When fired, the cylinder spins and the rear has a folding toggle lock like a Luger to cycle the action. It's baffling. The gun moves so much with every shot, I can't understand it. I know I've asked for the gun nuts to comment on previous guns, but please, I need your answers here. First, could this gun actually function? Second, does this design give any benefits over a more conventional revolver or semi-auto? And third, is there anything close to this in real life? My gut feeling is to dislike this gun. It feels so nonsensical and out there. It could show up right alongside the guns from Starfield, blending all these different mechanisms together in a mishmash of gunsmithing fever dreams. Bleh. I don't like it. 2 out of 10. You crazy sons of bitches. You did it. You made a bullpup revolver. Why would you do this? Why would you spit in the face of God like this? It just looks wrong. Revolvers were not meant to look like this. The magazine is a disc put into the rear of the gun at an angle. It looks like a ring of fucking birth control pills. It has all of the controls and they're ambidextrous, so I guess that's a positive. Oh lord, this is a wacky looking gun. Let's just shoot the thing and get it over with. When aiming down the sights, the gun fires in full auto, but otherwise not much to say about the shooting. The reloads are the standard V smash with the discs. There is something ejected from the gun on each shot. It's not empty cases, but instead looks to be like little flakes of metal. What in the hell could these be? Weirder than that is the fact that there is no clear ejector port on the gun, and the metal pieces are just coming out of random spots on the side and top of the frame. The Quasar is a mistake, a symbol of man's hubris. They bullpupped a revolver, and all of humanity will pay the price for it. 2 out of 10. Alright, now we're getting into some real nonsense. The Dian is a smart gun with a lot of stuff on it. A whole bunch of bits and a lot of moving parts. The stock looks uncomfortable, there's a massive hole in the gun, the barrel is exposed. What the hell is this thing? I like how there's a rail on top to mount a sight, but it's blocked by the massive ballistic computer. As for controls, I can see some, but no idea what they do. We need to see this thing firing. My god, where do you even start with this? When first drawn, the stock extends and the barrel moves into place. Hope neither of these things ever gets gummed up with dirt. When firing, the barrel and charging handle reciprocate, with the barrel also spinning wildly. Also, on both sides of the gun, a flap opens up with every shot to vent gas, I guess. I think the magazine loads rounds into the center of the barrel and then fires them from there. Why all the spinning and back and forth movement? No freaking clue. It's rule of cool, or rule of insane insanity. On reload, the magazine is fed into an automatic lifter that seats the mag in place. Pray that this complex moving part never breaks, or oops, no more ammo allowed in your gun. The charging handle is never used during reload, the gun auto-cocking itself on a full reload. So why even have a charging handle there, and why does it need to reciprocate? This gun is wild. So many moving bits and insane design with the action. Even for a smart gun, this weapon strains my suspension of disbelief. The barrel twirling and whirling like one of those wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube men you see at a car dealership. Why? Why does it do that? This whole gun is crazy, and I don't like it. 1 out of 10. The Erebus is the spooky gun possessed by a spooky AI. In fact, the name of this weapon in the game files is Haunted Gun. The most notable feature of this gun is the combination muzzle brake / meat tenderizer on the front of the gun. Perfect for the times when you need to quickly switch from blasting gongs to tenderizing your veal for schnitzel. The stock does not look comfortable, it is just where the gun ends and with little else to brace against. Same with the cheek weld. Just rest your face on the bumpy side of the magazine. This is not a very ergonomic gun to shoot. The sights are a set of canted irons on the right side. This is because the top of the gun is home to the spooky red eye of the AI that lives in the gun and calls V names.
You seek the key to a door that does not exist. Typical of your kind.
When first drawing the Erebus, the AI in the gun taunts you and will continue to do so occasionally while reloading. V will even retort back to the AI.
Well, another chatty construct. Guess you'll have to get in line.
The reloads are fine, V showing their classic care and love for their guns by smashing and slamming the mags into place with all the grace of a bull elephant. Each shot of the Erebus splits into 5 or 6 projectiles, making the weapon akin to an automatic shotgun. Coupled with the high rate of fire, this makes the Erebus not the most accurate gun and fairly hard to control. Oh, also, the gun can send people to cyber hell. When shooting low health enemies, the gun uploads the Blackwall Gateway quick hack, instantly killing them as their distorted screams echo through the air. Neat. The worst things about the Erebus are the ergonomics. The weapon is large and bulky, with a terrible stock and a bad sight put in a bad location. As for the design, it's rough, but not the worst I've seen for a prototype or one-off weapon. The meat tenderizer being the most baffling part. 5 out of 10. The Guillotine gives me vibes that it could be a gun in Borderlands. The bright colors and smooth lines makes me think it would fit right in. The controls are all there, there's a grip safety too, but I'm not sure about the stock. I don't know what the point of the folded metal bit is. Do you pull it up for a better shoulder fit? This gun has a built-in optic, one of the few guns in the game that has one by default, and the vertical foregrip is nice too. As for firing and reloading, it's pretty normal. Charging handle back, mag out, new mag in, charging handle forward. I really like the optic too. It's big and clear and easy to put on target. It even has an ammo counter and reload warning in it. Despite looking a little like a clown gun and having a weird stock, the Guillotine is one of the more normal SMGs in Cyberpunk. 7 out of 10. The Pulsar is the most extreme bullpup I've ever seen. I don't think it's possible to put the magazine farther back than this. This gun reminds me of that one prototype bullpup AK that you can see pictures of floating around the internet. Or it also looks like the Groza, the real bullpup AK thing the Russians have. Can someone tell me how these extreme bullpups work? How much stuff is crammed into the rear end? Trigger safety and mag release in a sensible location, even a front grip. What's the purpose of the half cut off tip of the barrel? I would guess that's to stop gas from hitting the shooter's hand. Despite the wacky design, the Pulsar fires and reloads very normally. The iron sights are kinda blah and rough looking, but otherwise this is fine. This is one of the most reasonable, crazy designs in Cyberpunk. 7 out of 10. The legally distinct UMP we have at home, the Saratoga is, well, it's an H&K UMP. Just look at the two side by side. Resemblance is uncanny. Very much a case of, can I copy your homework? It looks good, all the controls present and ambidextrous. There are these holes cut in the gun that I assume are to keep the gun lighter, but considering this thing is already mostly plastic, I'm not sure how necessary that is. The Saratoga reloads like a UMP-2. Bolt handle back, mag out, new one in, handle forward. On full reload, V even gives the bolt a proper slap to send it forward. Not much else to comment on with the Saratoga. It's a very normal gun, and that's because it is a normal gun. While being a perfectly functional gun, it's kinda boring. 5 out of 10. The Saratoga was Militech copying the UMP, and now the Shigure is Arasaka copying the UMP. It's a little chunkier, the stock is straighter, and it's a little rounder, but it's still identifiably UMP inspired. And much like the Saratoga, there's not much to say about it one way or another. It shoot bullet and reload like a normal gun, because it is a normal gun. 5 out of 10. A literal designer SMG, the Senkoh is the chicest form of self-defense in Night City. It does the designer fashion thing of just covering the gun with the Jinguji logo and saying, yes, now this is truly peak fashion. The front of the gun looks like a clutch bag or a wallet, giving the gun some more accessory utility. On the first draw of the Senkoh, V slides the wallet or clutch into place under the barrel before putting their thumb on a fingerprint reader on the rear of the gun. Does the gun purse do anything? Do I need it to run the gun? Imagine not being able to fire your gun because you left your wallet at home. As for the fingerprint reader, you better hope that that's reliable and that it doesn't fail to read if your hands are dirty or a little sweaty. I've heard that biometric guns tested in real life are almost always killed by unreliability. The gun fails to unlock consistently for whatever reason, and in a life or death situation where seconds count, that could cost you your life. It's simpler to just have a mechanical safety that can be switched off with a flick of a finger. The Senkoh fires in 3-round bursts, and when aiming down the sight, it can fire full auto. The gun is firing the same triangular caseless rounds seen in a few other guns and is an electromagnetic gun. I can't spot an ejector port, so pray it never jams. The sight is a neat pop-up hologram that is clean and easy to use. This gun, in my unfashionable opinion, is a fashion crime. It looks tacky with all the logos slapped all over it, and the purse glued to the bottom. I would not trust my life to the biometric lock either. This gun is used to look posh and not really expected to be used for self-defense. 4 out of 10. Another Arasaka smart gun, the Shingen, looks like it has a tube of Pringles sticking out of its ass. The Pringles tube also acts as a stock, and I wonder how comfortable that is for shooting. Are there any real-world examples of magazines doubling as stocks? It's got the big-ass ballistic computer on top and no backup sights. Still really thinking about if smart guns can fire without the computer working or not. I want to compliment the design of the Arasaka guns. They all have very slick designs, with nicely laid out ambidextrous controls for everything. I like the uniform design features that their guns share regardless of the type of gun they are. As for shooting and reloading, it's fine. You're stuck with burst fire only, but whatever. I do like the big red ominous ammo counter. This is one of the more normal smart guns, even if it does have a Pringles tube coming out of its butt. 7 out of 10. Yeesh. Someone stuck a blowtorch, power drill, and nail gun together, and it looks great. It looks just great. Seriously though. The muzzle brake looks like the nozzle of a blowtorch, and the gray brick at the bottom looks like the battery for a power drill. This thing would fit right in at any Home Depot. I wouldn't even blink twice if I saw one there. This is another Hanson Armory creation, like the Grit, so I guess that explains its cobbled together appearance. Big old computer on top, massive front grip, a couple of power cables, one held down by a rubber band. Not a pretty gun, is it? The Warden fires a spread of shots with each round, and its most endearing quirk is the ear-splitting whine it makes when firing. The sound builds up to a tinnitus-inducing pitch right as the mag empties. I hate it. I hate how it looks, I hate how it sounds. Fuck it, fuck this gun, it bad. 2 out of 10. The Carnage is a big fuck-off pump-action shotgun. Appearance-wise, it's not a looker, but it is a budget arms weapon. Looks don't matter for a gun like this. Only if it shoot good. Little in the way of controls. A big safety lever, maybe, crudely welded on top, and some sort of button on the side, and that's about it. The Carnage shares the same folded metal bit at the rear of the stock as the Guillotine, and I still can't figure out what that's for.
I knew it.
When first drawing the Carnage, V racks the pump because it's the thing you do with shotguns in the movies. It has to be an 8 gauge or maybe even 4 gauge based on the enormous brass shells it takes. The kick from this weapon is so powerful that V is knocked back a little bit with each shot. I think you would need some sort of cyberware to handle the recoil. A fleshy person trying to tank this would have the gun ripped from their hands. The reload is good, V loading a +1 into the chamber and 3 more into the magazine. This is a solid weapon. It's essentially a really big pump action and works exactly as you would expect one to. Maybe a 4 gauge is a little overkill, but I think that fits right in with Night City. Overkill is just making sure the job is done. 7 out of 10. The Crusher has a neat place in the history of Cyberpunk 2077. Ages ago, back in 2013, when the very first teaser trailer for the game was released, the Crusher is prominently shown. And it looks pretty much the same in the final game as it did in the trailer. A relatively compact shotgun, the Crusher has all the controls, but there are some issues. First off, why no stock? This is a 12 gauge fully automatic shotgun. A stock would help balance out that kick. Second issue is the open gap behind the bolt where you can see the recoil spring. No reason for that to be exposed and allow dirt and gunk to build up and possibly affect the bolt's travel. When first drawing the Crusher, V checks the mag before chambering around, while very amateurly riding the bolt handle forward. As many people thankfully explained in my Fallout 4 gun video, this is a bad habit often associated with new shooters. You're supposed to let the recoil spring drive the bolt into battery on its own power. Riding it can cause issues with feeding around into the chamber or not seat the bolt fully into battery. A sloppy bit of handling from someone as experienced as V. The only other issue I notice is the lack of ejected shells. The gun is clearly loaded with standard 12 gauge shells, and there is an obvious ejector port on the right side of the gun, and yet, no shells. I'm not sure how they missed that one, but they did. I like the Crusher, and even with its issues, it's still pretty high tier. 7 out of 10. The Igla is a double-barreled shotgun, and well, that's what it is. It's a pretty good looking one too. Single trigger, the latch and safety are present. When you look down the barrel, you can even see the front of the shells. When reloading, V actually uses the latch to open the gun. Nice job. The ejected shells look fired, the front blown out, and the primer struck. You can even do a partial reload firing one barrel. All very nice details. Now the bad stuff. Minor point, but the ejectors don't appear to be animated, the shells just jumping out of the gun. The bigger mistake is that there is no front sight. Double barrels usually come with a front bead sight at the muzzle between the two barrels. The Igla doesn't have any sight. I know it's a shotgun, but you still have to aim shotguns. This one is pretty good despite those mess-ups. Although it is pretty hard to fuck up a double barrel, they're practically two pipes welded together. 8 out of 10. The first of a few Igla variants, the Palica is a smart shotgun, or a shart gun if you will. I find it hard to believe that this is a mass-manufactured gun. It's so rough and shoddy looking. Parts are held in place with zip ties and electrical tape. There are guns built by 3 guys in a shed that look better than this. Each round has 8 projectiles, and when fired, you can see them fly out of the gun and hang in the air for a fraction of a second before zooming off like a swarm of angry bees. 2 things of note. First is that the gun opens without V touching anything, and second is that the shells are marked Arasaka, which is interesting because there is no Arasaka in the game that looks like it could use this ammo. I feel like using a really cheap smart gun held together by tape is not very smart. They chopped up a perfectly good double barrel to make this monstrosity, when the Igla is the better option. 3 out of 10. An attempt at modernizing the Igla. The Satara is an Igla with a bunch of shit glued to the barrel. All the loose cables held up by tape does not fill me with confidence. Fragile. That's the word that comes to mind looking at this gun. All those things on the barrel or the loose wires are going to catch on something and tear off. If you drop this gun, it will most certainly break. Like, I understand if this gun is supposed to be a prototype or a proof of concept that it might be fragile. It's in a stage where it's not ready for in-the-field operation. But this is a production gun that they are selling to fools on the mean streets of Night City. This thing won't last 10 minutes in a firefight before all the bits snap off. It fires and reloads nearly exactly like the Igla, except now you can charge the shots. And I have to ask, what does the charge actually do? Do all the bits glued to the barrel charge up the shot pellets as they go down it? This isn't using any special ammo, V feeds it standard 12-gauge shells. Would this have a noticeable effect on the shot, and is the effect worth all the extra stuff stuck to the gun? Like it's buckshot. How much more penetration or impact is this going to impart? Seems a bit like another lower tier 3 guys in a shed type of gun. 4 out of 10. The final variant of the Igla, the Testera, is the shortened and reinforced version. It has a second grip forward of the trigger for extra support. The barrels are cut down and covered by a double-layered shroud. Not sure what that does or why it's needed. The Testera fires the same looking shells as the Igla, but now just both barrels at the same time. That's about it. It lacks a sight like the Igla, but with the amount of spread it has, you're not hitting anything past 10 feet anyway. This gun is the epitome of the classic video game shotgun. Deadly at point-blank range, past that, confetti cannon. 4 out of 10. The Pozhar is the Crusher, but Russian. The two guns share a similar silhouette, and are both stockless, similarly sized fully automatic shotguns. The Pozhar has a higher rate of fire, which only makes the lack of stock more of an issue. In a Russian AK way, the charging handle is on the right side, but otherwise, the controls are normal. It's interesting to note that it has a rifled barrel. Not unheard of in a shotgun, but smoothbore are definitely more common. When first equipping the Pozhar, V does a press check, and you can see that the shells loaded into the gun are slugs. That explains why it's a rifled barrel. You want spin to stabilize the slugs in flight. But the gun is clearly not firing slugs. It's firing shot. Now it's possible to fire shot out of a rifled shotgun, but this imparts spin to the shot cup. This causes the pattern of the shot to get all messed up, and you probably won't hit very much of anything. My thought is that originally this was supposed to be a slug-firing auto shotgun as a counterpart to the shot-firing Crusher, but that was changed somewhere in development, and the Pozhar became another old plain shotgun, and it was too far along to go back and alter the model to reflect that. Shame, really. An auto slug thrower would have been neat. The sight on the gun is a retro, techy-looking orange box in the carry handle. It's got an ammo counter, rangefinder, and a reload indicator built in too. The chunky bolt flying back is a bit scary. I know it's an irrational fear, but I worry about getting a finger caught in something like that. Without firing slugs like it should, the Pozhar is, as I said, the Crusher but Russian flavored. Kinda disappointing. 6 out of 10. The Tactician is your bog-standard pump-action shotgun. It's fully ambidextrous, even having an ejector port on each side of the gun. Most normal shotgun in the game by far. When first drawing the Tactician, V does the one-handed pump because it's the thing you do with shotguns in the movies. As for firing and reload animations, they look really good. On empty, V loads a +1 into the chamber and puts 7 in the mag. I guess my only question is if the magazine is long enough to hold 7 shells plus the follower. This is probably one of the most boring guns in the game. Boring, yet effective and, reasonable. 8 out of 10. To finish off the shotguns, we have this fucking thing. What is this? The smart guns are starting to piss me off. This gun is the size of a small dog. It has a massive stock, 8 fucking barrels, a bunch of cables and a hockey puck at the front, an actual visual assault on the eyes. A gun design atrocity. If this gun was colored orange, it would fit right in as a Nerf gun. When first drawn, V looks at the gun in disbelief at how fucking unsightly it is.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
The gun has 4 shots per magazine, 2 barrels firing with each shot. I don't understand why it needs 8 barrels. Why couldn't this work as a semi-auto double barrel? They made the gun weigh 50% more and made it a pain in the ass to carry around magazines the size of a VCR. So many little switches and knobs and moving parts. My favorite being the trigger guard. A retractable cover slides over the trigger as a safety feature. Again, you better pray that it never breaks or has any issues moving, because oops, you can't shoot your giant moron cannon and now you're dead. I've seen more attractive and useful tumors than this gun. 2 out of 10. The most notable thing about the Ajax is the big old curved mags it uses. The mags are large on their own, but the magwell sits pretty low on the gun and emphasizes their size. There is a quirk with the gun that I think is a glitch. When examining the model, there is no sight on the gun, but when equipped, it comes with a squat little red dot sight. I even had the sight not appear in the very first draw animation, only for it to magically spawn in when I tried it a second time. Very weird. Ain't much else to say about the looks or animations beyond that. Controls are all there, reload looks good. The Ajax is not too different or futuristic than a modern day assault rifle. The Militech guns do seem to be fairly practical and fall into the category of rugged military looking guns, and the Ajax fits right in with that. 7 out of 10. The Copperhead bears a striking resemblance to the R101C and R301 carbines from Titanfall and Apex Legends. Take a look side by side. Same angled mag and magwell, same long front handguard, even the charging handle is the same as the R101. Different stock and the charging handle is a bit further forward on the Copperhead, but it's still very similar overall. I'm not calling it a copycat. This could just be a reference to Titanfall, or perhaps they both took inspiration from the same real-world guns. Does anyone know if any of these guns are based on real-world guns? Outside of the gun's similarity to guns from other games, it fires and reloads okay and the controls are all there. I'll let the comments decide whether or not this is a case of copying or a happy coinkydink. 7 out of 10. The Sidewinder is the Copperhead converted to be a smart gun. The major changes is that the barrel's been chopped down and a ballistic computer has been mounted on the top. There's also this bulbous piece beneath the barrel for no reason, and there's this techie bit with cables on the left side that I have no clue what it does. It's funny how many of the smart guns are what look like hasty conversions of existing designs. Like the manufacturers are rushing to get their own smart gun to market and not miss out on a niche. The Sidewinder is not as rough as the Palica in that regard, but it's not a pretty gun either. The reload is nearly the same as the Copperhead and is fine. I've mentioned it a few times, but man is it weird that the aim down sight / alternate fire mode for most of the smart guns is to just tilt it to the side. Does the tilt actually do anything to alter the way the gun fires? Is this just V being special? Is it a gameplay concession? Maybe there's an accelerometer in the gun that can change the fire rate or whatever based on the gun's position. That probably isn't the case, I'm just spitballing here. The Sidewinder. It's the Copperhead, but shorter. 6 out of 10. A prototype smart gun, the Hercules sure does look the part of a work in progress. It's big and bulky, with a massive box magazine and feeding belt. The scope/ballistic computer on the top is nearly the length of the entire gun. The barrel shroud is so thick and prominent, I thought that it might have been an integrated suppressor when I first saw it. The word prototype is stenciled on the stock below a set of switches that do God knows what. I guess those might be the safety, mag release, etc., because I can't see them anywhere else on the gun. This weapon is clearly not ready for the field, not like that will stop V from using it. I'm just trying to imagine V carrying a whole backpack filled with huge ammo cans this thing uses. The rounds the Hercules fires are explosive, poisonous chemical rounds, as indicated by the skull and crossbones on the barrel and the biological hazard symbol on the feeding belt. Always nice to risk poisoning from your own weapon. I have to guess that in a production model, a more conventional magazine would be used, because the ammo box is ridiculous. On an empty reload, there are still clearly rounds in the belt, which is a really silly mistake. The Hercules doesn't need V to have the SmartLink cyberware installed to do smart gun shooting, which makes me wonder why don't all smart guns work like this? Is it just a way of getting more money out of your customers? You have to buy the matching robot hand to get the most of the gun you just bought? The scope is a huge binocular-looking rig with a rangefinder. Are there any examples of real-life binocular gun scopes for small arms? It seems kind of pointless as you would have to place the gun directly in front of you to get the most out of a scope like this. The Hercules definitely has some problems, its enormous size and bulk being the primary one, but because this is clearly a prototype, I'm willing to give it a bit of leeway on its faults. Plus it's fun blasting people with toxic chemicals in a video game. 5 out of 10. The QB is a semi-auto only assault rifle. It has a similar odd-looking low magwell like the Ajax. The barrel is covered with a polymer shroud, making it one of the most plastic guns in the game outside of the Slaught-O-Matic. The controls are clear and ambidextrous, with even the charging handle and ejector able to be switched around. The QB only fires in semi-auto and has controllable recoil. By default, it has a slick-looking holographic sight with an ammo counter instead of an iron sight. Just hope that it has good battery life because it has no backup irons. I like that the muzzle flare matches the shape of the muzzle brake. On a full reload, the bolt doesn't lock open and V has to use the charging handle, which there are 2 of. There is one on the side of the gun and an AR-style T charging handle behind the rear sight. I found this kind of weird. Are there any examples of guns with 2 separate charging handles? Seems a little redundant. Gun nuts, chime in with examples of guns that do this and the benefits/drawbacks of it. Thank you, send tweet. I like the QB. It's got a nice shape and silhouette. The semi-auto fire and good sound effects make the gun feel real powerful and controllable. It's a neat little gun. 8 out of 10. Another gun from Arasaka, the Masamune is a very sleek looking weapon. It shares the same ambidextrous controls of the other Arasaka guns, and appears similar to the Shingen. It's hard to explain, but I almost feel like this gun should be a bullpup. The overall length is pretty short, and the barrel is pretty small. The lack of adjustable stock is also an odd choice. If this gun is too short or too long for you, tough luck, I guess. The gun is burst fire only and appears to be set up incorrectly for right-handed shooting. The gun is ejecting cases on the left side, right into the line of sight of right-handed shooter V. Usually ambidextrous guns have a way of changing which side they eject from, or some, like the P90, eject downwards. The way the Masamune is currently ejecting, V is likely to catch some hot brass in their face. That's really the only issue I've noticed. The reload and firing looking good otherwise. The iron sight and built-in ammo counter is slick too. In general, Arasaka seems to know what they're doing when it comes to making neat guns. 8 out of 10. A stamped sheet metal hunk of shit, the Umbra is no one's favorite gun. Cheap. That is the word that comes to mind looking at this gun. The front of the gun is a rectangle that looks like an AK gas block someone forgot to cut out. The trigger is a flimsy strip of metal, probably get an amazing trigger pull out of that. I like how the buffer tube is just hanging out in the hollow of the stock, and man does that stock look really comfortable. A big metal rectangle to rest your cheek on. No controls that I can see, can't imagine how you take the magazine out, and no safety because fuck that useless feature. V just yanks the magazine out of the gun as there is no mag release. This is the bare minimum of a functional gun. You can fire and reload it, and probably hit a target with it, but this would not be a long-term use gun unless you are very desperate. Even the in-game description says as much. Fire, kill, toss. Not exactly a keepsake, you'll ditch the Umbra as soon as something better comes along, and not a moment later. And I agree completely. 3 out of 10. The Achilles is bizarre. The gun splits open because a ton of moving parts is a really good idea on a gun. It has 3 rails that fire 5 shots in a star pattern. I can't tell where the shots are supposed to come from. There's a pair of openings on the end of each rail, but that would make the gun fire 6 shots in a different pattern. The rails are what reciprocate and charge when using the gun, so the shots have to be coming out of them. There just isn't a hole that makes sense for how. If I've totally blinded this, please let me know. I've stared at this gun for like 15 minutes trying to understand how it fires. When charged, the rails close up and the shot pattern is tighter, and I struggle to understand why I wouldn't always want the tighter shot. The wider spread looks like it would be shit in getting more than 1 or 2 shots on target. Not to mention the wide shot requires the weapon to have these big stupid hinges that are more points of failure. Just keep the rails together and have the shot be nice and tight and actually hit the target. There's this bit below the ammo counter that just spins. Look at it go, spinning like that. What could possibly be the point of this? We're getting to Starfield level doodads with the spinny bit. It's difficult to tell if the magazine put into the gun is holding projectiles or is some sort of battery. This is clearly another electromagnetic weapon, meaning it's firing projectiles, so perhaps the magazine is both? Still doesn't answer the question of how the shots get from the mag to the rails and where the rounds even come out of. This might be the worst gun in the game. With all the other guns, there are some that are poorly designed or have weird quirks and mistakes. Some have clearly sci-fi elements that can be hand-waved away as being advanced tech, but this gun appears to break the law of physics. This gun would not work. It makes no sense. We did it. Finally a weapon to challenge the garbage in Starfield. 1 out of 10. The Kolak is a big old 20mm bullpup anti-material rifle. Now, the only version you can get in the game is an iconic called Hypercritical, but the regular version is in the game files and can be spawned in like the one I have here at the range. On a visual level, I quite like it. The bullpup design keeps it at a reasonable length, even chambered with a beefy 20mm round. Selector switch, charging handle, and mag release are all present. With 3 notches on the selector, I guess this can fire full auto? Yeah, good luck with that. It's clearly set up for right-handed shooting. The dust cover and ejector port are right where your face would be shooting on the left. But because nobody shoots left-handed, that's fine. When first drawing the Kolak, V does a press check because it's the running joke I make in these gun videos. The Kolak has a bit of kick. You'll need cyberarms to keep this thing under control with rapid fire. A weapon like this would probably be better served firing from prone or using a mount of some kind. While the reload looks good, I did notice a lack of ejected casings from the gun. Mistakes like that are so weird and inconsistent, I wonder how it gets past Q&A. How do you forget to put cases flying out of a gun? I like the Kolak, and despite the magic lack of casings, this gun is very simple and effective. 8 out of 10. The SOAR 22 is very sci-fi looking with its patterned metal frame and sharp angled edges. The magazine fits in at an angle, and I wonder what benefit that adds as opposed to a more standard placement under the gun. It reminds me of the M249 SAW, which usually uses a belt feeding from a box under the gun, but in tight spots can use standard M4 mags, although I've heard that this is very unreliable. The carry handle also looks like something more at home on an LMG instead of a precision rifle. The big-ass muzzle brake is fun, but the stock looks like a mess, big and kludgy. The forward grip also looks a little flimsy. Mag release and safety are there, so good job. The firing and reload is pretty standard. They remembered to put in the ejected casings this time, and there's not much else to comment on. My personal theory is that this was going to be a machine gun at one point and was turned into a marksman's rifle. My only evidence for this is the weird side magazine and carry handle. Well, those and vibes. Let me know if you think I'm onto something here or just being crazy. As for the gun itself, I'm lukewarm on it. It's not the worst gun in the game, but nothing about it really interests me one way or another. 5 out of 10. The Ashura is a tube with a trigger and a stock. A smart gun, it has a huge ballistic computer instead of a scope. Or maybe the underbarrel thing is the computer? Dunno, can't tell. It looks a little rough with cables zip-tied down and the massive mounting rail on the top. This gun looks like it's been jury-rigged to be a smart gun and not purpose-built. Another 3 guys in a shed type gun. The Ashura is a single-shot, straight-pull breech loader. My favorite thing about this weapon is that it shoots bees. The rocket round V loads into the gun has black and yellow stripes, and they remind me of bees. I like how the gun has an ammo counter on the side, despite being single-shot. The gun is binary. It either has a round in it or it doesn't. The counter should read loaded or something like that. I don't think I'm going to lose track or forget about how much ammo it has. The Ashura has me asking the same eternal smart gun question. If the fancy scope breaks, how useful is this gun? Because with a traditional gun, if the sight breaks, the gun can still go bang as effectively as usual. I also question the utility of a single-shot weapon in this day and age, and wonder if it would be so hard to give this thing a magazine and a few more rounds. 4 out of 10. The Grad might be the longest gun in the game. A giant bolt-action bullpup firing a sizable round, this thing packs a punch. At a glance, all the controls are there, and it comes with a scope by default. It's interesting to note that usually one of the benefits of a bullpup is the shorter overall length of the gun, but here the Grad has a similar length to a more traditionally set up gun. A little over half of this weapon is barrel. Definitely not a close quarters gun. It has a bipod and a rear monopod for extra stability, but unfortunately neither of these can be used in game. Realistically, even with cyberware, a rifle of this size would be fired from prone or some kind of brace or mount for best stability. V fires this fucking monster from the shoulder because they really want to experience the sensation of breaking their collarbone. Interestingly, the Grad is cycled by pushing the bolt handle forward. I can't recall a real-world example of something like this. Gun nuts, please enlighten me on any guns that do this and if such an action would work. Part of me questions if it would work on this gun because of the huge rounds. That quirk aside, it's a giant bolt action, and the firing and reloading look pretty good. Probably not the most convenient gun for V or anyone else for that matter to lug around, but if you need a hole punched through something, this will probably do the job. Big rifle a little silly, but big rifle kinda fun. 7 out of 10. Another electromag weapon, the Nekomata looks fragile. Open, easily bent rails, exposed cables running down the side of the gun held in place with zip ties. The gun does not seem ready for the rigors of a battlefield or Night City for that matter. I'm kind of over these kind of weapons. As I've said with similar looking ones, they look more like prototypes than finished products, and I can't imagine companies selling them to market. As for firing, the chargy bits in the barrel reciprocate for every shot for no reason other than causing needless wear and tear on the parts. Reload is mag in, bolt forward. Not much else to say about this one. 4 out of 10. This is a neat looking gun. The Osprey is a bullpup fired over the shoulder. It looks inspired by the bullpup Barrett 50 cal that was fired in the same way and used for defense against helicopters, I'm pretty sure. Another weird inspiration is the pistol grip and trigger guard, which is taken from an Uzi. Odd choice for that one. The built-in foregrip is nice, but I can't see any iron sight for backup, and I question the usefulness of a rail mounted that high on the gun. Not a fan of the exposed recoil spring at the back, just asking for dirt to gum that up. It fires explosive rounds, and the mounted scope swings down when aiming. Why not always have the scope down? You have no other sights to use. When aiming the gun, it fires in 3-round bursts. I also question the usefulness of this. The magazine only holds 12 rounds, giving you only 4 bursts per mag. The recoil is also very harsh, with the second and third shots going way high, forcing you to aim very low on the target. A weapon such as this would probably be more effective on targets larger and more armored than a person, in place positioned, lightly armored vehicles and aircraft, things like that. Against the random gonks of NC, maybe a bit overkill. 6 out of 10. The Rasetsu is a portable railgun. It has a nice looking design, although I don't like all the gaps along the top rail. Another gun with a bipod you can't use, unfortunately. No issues with the control, grips, or trigger. The adjustable stock is kind of funny to me. It's so small, and I like to think that that's as far out as it goes. The gun can be charged up to go pew harder, but more interesting is that the scope on the Rasetsu is not a standard one. Instead, it has a neural link with the shooter and uses V's zoomy eyes as the scope. Kind of novel. I guess you could have the gun set up somewhere and aim it with your eyes. Why it still has to be scope shaped and mounted on the top of the rifle, not really sure. The gun has a tiny replaceable internal magazine with only 3 rounds. On reload, the tape deck on the side of the gun opens, and V puts a fresh cassette tape in, playing only the hottest mixtape. I think a gun like this is more effective in the mount V found it in than shouldered. It seems more like a stationary turret gun than something to haul around. Still, it's pretty sleek and does go pew pretty hard. 7 out of 10. And that's it. Outside of a few exceptionally good and exceptionally bad guns, most of the weapons in Cyberpunk are pretty average. They are okay examples of fictional guns for the most part. It's clear that the designers had at least some idea of how guns work, understanding their basic mechanics and functions. Or they consulted with someone who was more familiar with the guns to make sure they were mostly on the right path. The more traditional and sensical designs scored higher, while the lower scores were often the more high-tech and sci-fi type guns. The smart guns in general were often bizarre in their layout and functionality, nearly magic bullshit in how they worked. The strangest contradiction with the weapons was the level of detail that most had, only for some to have obvious mistakes that were easy to fix. Guns in Cyberpunk are so detailed with markings and controls and caliber stamps, but then you see things like missing ejected cases, reloads without touching the mag release, and forgetting to put sights on a few guns. It's a shame because some of the guns lost a point or two because of these simple and avoidable mistakes. Despite this, Cyberpunk's arsenal did alright and has some really cool guns to boot. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing. I have a couple other videos covering guns and games on my channel, and have several videos analyzing games. I also stream on YouTube and Twitch 4 times a week, and have a stream archive where you can see all my past streams, and you should check those out if you're interested. There will be more videos of all kinds coming in the future, so stick around. Thanks again, and see you next time.